My pops would always ask me, boy, are you playing to lose? Actually, he wouldn't say that. He would say, boy, are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? And every time that I got to a point where I would get up in a game, whether this was Nintendo or, playing football or basketball, if I ever got to a point, especially playing 21 against my brother, which he would always beat me, I would get to a point and maybe I was in the lead and then I would try and protect the lead. And every time we see this happen and a person is playing not to lose, generally it's a foregone conclusion. When we play to win, we take the mufflers off, we take the brakes off, we go after exactly what it is that we want. And probably the best example of this was the Super Bowl last year. The first couple of plays, when I saw it happen, and when you guys were watching it, everyone assumed that the Chiefs were going to win their third Super Bowl in a row. And I felt the same way, and then a lot of people had arguments against the refs and all these things. And then there was the one of the first plays where A.J. Brown goes, and there's offensive pass interference, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is how the day's going to go. And it was almost like there was a switch, boom, that happened with the Philadelphia Eagles. And they said, we're going to flip that switch, and we're going to play to win, and we're going to leave no question who the champion is. And you know what happened? I mean, they stomped a mud hole in the Chiefs that year. If you're a Chiefs fan, it's just the reality of it. And my wife came down this morning into the kitchen, and her light was a little bit dim, and this is not normal for Brooklyn. Now, when I asked her the question, like, hey, baby, what's going on? She just told me that I have a little anxiety this morning about a wedding that I'm doing. And I said, well, in my head, I'm thinking, well, you're the best in the industry. You're the best, I believe, out there in the wedding hairdressing space. And it's proved the fact that you just got voted number one in all of San Diego, the number one wedding hairdresser in all of San Diego for 2025. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, how could you even question this? I didn't say that because I didn't want to get punched in the throat, but I did ask a couple of questions. And I asked, tell me more about this. And as she started to tell me, she told me about a couple of things. She told me about great things that she knew about what was going on with the wedding. And then she told me about a couple of details that, kind of were overwhelming her. And what I realized at that time was she had come to a crossroads, right? So this thing that she was so anxious about, what I realized is that she was only anxious about it because she cared about it. But then there's the crossroad, which we all come to. When we care about something so deeply, that crossroad is, do we celebrate it? Do we celebrate the fact that we care about it so much, and that's the reason why we're the best at what we do, and we just lay into that and continue to celebrate those things? Or do we allow it to apply pressure to us that will debilitate us into wondering, what if I screw this up? And for me, as I sat with it, I realized that neither one of those mentalities will change the actual physical circumstances, but they will determine the outcome. So as I sat down today with Proverbs 26, it's incredible the way that God works, because 3,000 years ago, this wisdom was put in play, and Proverbs 26 prepares us to play to win at all times. So let's get this party started.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I climb. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
If you didn't get to see the podcast the other day, I got a chance to be able to interview none other than Win Claybaugh, who is the co-founder of the Paul Mitchell Schools. And he sat down and he talked about preparation. Now, the little mishap that happens in the intro for me when I misspeak or I say something, when I said, my pops would ask me, "Are you playing to lose?" He wouldn't ask me that question. But if you get the chance to be able to listen to Win on the podcast, it was incredible, because that type of preparation, and what it helped me to realize was, most of the time when I try and do something as opposed to let it happen, doesn't mean that we don't put in the preparation, but I would definitely recommend, taking the time and preparing yourself in different arenas, right? And so with that, I want you to know that that's real. I go live. I don't edit this stuff. I make sure that it's there. So, but as we go into this today, as far as playing to win or playing not to lose, this is probably, I think that if you look at it in relationships, you look at it in business, you look at it in friendships, anywhere in life, if you play to win, you can't lose. If you play not to lose, that's most of the time when you get caught. And I had this happen in a flag football game. Luckily, Coach Paul, and I want to thank you, Coach Paul. Coach Paul's defense was so good that my offense, when I played the last couple of plays, we were up. We were in a playoff game and we were up. And I called a couple of plays, and the last two plays that I called were just to protect the ball, as opposed to just play to win. Because had we scored, there was no way that the other team would have even had a chance. Although I played safe, I played to protect the score, and when I did, there was still a chance that on the last play that the other team could win. And luckily, I had another coach in Coach Paul that had phenomenal defense, and we stopped him on the last play, and then we won the playoff game. But what I would encourage you to do is to look at this, ask yourself, whether it be in your business, your circumstances, anything like that, are you playing to win, or are you playing not to lose? And my wife was in this situation today, and she really, really inspired me. I love her so much, and she is the best, honestly, the best wedding hairdresser, hands down, that is out there. And it's proven, like I said earlier, she got voted the top hairdresser, top wedding hairdresser, in the #1 in San Diego in 2025. And when she told me that she had a little anxiety this morning, I was thinking, wow, how could a person that's at that level have anxiety? But then I realized that, wow, this is because she cares. And because she cares, that makes her the best. But imagine, every time that we care about something so deeply, we come to a crossroad. And that crossroad is, do I celebrate the fact that I care that much, and that's the reason why I'm the best? Or do we allow it to apply that pressure to us that will debilitate us into wondering, what if I screw this up? And this goes for any circumstance within your life. And so I would ask the question today, are you playing to lose, or are you playing to win, or are you playing not to lose? And when I was telling you earlier, as far as Proverbs 26, it prepares us to play to win at all times. And I want to run through this because I love the fact that 3,000-year-old wisdom can help us in today's times, right? And so in verse 1, playing to win has nothing to do with losing. And that sounds so like such a redundant statement. But hear me out here. In verse 1, when it talks about it, there's a separation. My pops talked about it as far as oil and water. He said you could shake them up. They could look like they mix, but then once they settle, they'll always separate. And playing to win, when you play to win, there's actually no losing in that, because even if you were to lose in that situation, then you're going to learn the lesson, and then you're going to move forward, and you're going to play to win again. But a lot of times what happens is we take a couple of, Tim Story said that sometimes life will knock the shout out of you, right? And so we start in shouting and then we end with the whisper. And what God's telling us is that I want you to play to win at all times. It doesn't mean that all the circumstances are going to be perfect. It just means that you go into the mentality that I want to go in winning. I want to go in trying my best, leaving every single thing on the table. And in the event that things don't work out in your favor, guess what? They're still in your favor, because of the mentality that you brought into the situation in the first place. In verse 2 and 3, the only loss you will ever take is when you don't play to win. This is a hard thing to understand. Now, for me, like, I hear it a lot as far as social media, and media at large. You need to be winning. There's this culture of just winning. I'm not subscribing to that, nor am I asking you to. What I am saying is that you put it all out there, that you go and you leave every single thing on the table. That's a win. No matter what happens, it's a win. And the only loss that you will ever take is when you don't play to win. The only losses that you'll ever take is when you play not to lose. When you try and protect the lead. Don't protect the lead today. Walk through this and say, like, I want to play to win. And so with my wife this morning, when she was looking at this and she had a little bit of anxiety, that anxiety, literally, it can either fuel her to get her to celebrate how much she cares, or it can completely paralyze her because she's afraid that she's going to screw something up. But it's just the thought process and the mentality that you take into that. It won't change the circumstances, but it'll definitely change the outcome. In verse 4 and 5 is spend no time trying to convince foolish people unless you are the foolish person. Spend no time trying to convince the foolish people, because it'll waste your time. That is, unless that foolish person is you, and if that foolish person is you, which means foolish just means the absence of wisdom. And I would suggest, and this is what is suggested in verse 4 and 5, is go to the ends of the earth to convince that person. Because foolish behavior generally ends up with foolish results. So in verse 6 through 11, playing not to lose is foolish, although it is highly addictive. Chew on that for a second, and we're going to move on to the next one. Verse 12 through 22, wisdom will keep you playing to win, stop you from laziness, keep you focused on your own business, stop you from gossiping, and will remove the fuel that will cause you to play, not to lose. You see, at the beginning of this is wisdom. And we talk about this in Inchstones as far as the workbook. So it's a 3-month workbook. And we talk about this where the beginning of all stuff, where you need to start, there's a circle, and I've got it in there, and it says fear of God, which is the respect of God. So once we do that, the beginning of all wisdom is the fear of God. So you start with the fear of God or the respect of God. The only way that will happen is if you just spend time with him. And when we spend time with God, then he gives us wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge. Then he brings in knowledge, because knowledge doesn't have any value unless you have the right use of it. And then after that knowledge that he brings in, he'll bring in understanding, he'll bring in insight, he'll bring in discernment, which will create discretion, which will create discipline, and ultimately lead you to strength. And that strength will lead you right back to the place where you started in the first place, which was the respect of God or spending time with God. So that wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge, is so very important. And check this out. Wisdom will keep you playing to win. It'll stop you from laziness. It'll keep you focused on your own business, stop you from gossiping, and remove all the fuel that will cause you to play not to lose. There's a fork in the road. There's going to be one today. You're going to get anxious about something, about an outcome that you think about. And what I want you to think about when you get to that place is you have a choice. You can either celebrate the fact that you care about it that much and have it fuel you to go after this thing, because that's the way when we play to win, that's what we end up getting. Or you can allow it to apply the pressure that will debilitate you into wondering, what happens if I screw this up? And I tell you, living in that realm it is never a good place. It doesn't bring good results. So in verse 23 through 26, when you play to win, you will have an unfair advantage, and this cannot be faked. Playing to win has to come from your heart. So to be able to fill up your heart, where did we, if we move backwards in this, wisdom will keep you playing to win. So if you fill up your heart with wisdom, it will always push you in the right mentality, which is to play to win. When you play to win, you have an unfair advantage. Do you want an unfair advantage? Yes, I want an unfair advantage in every single thing that I do. I want to be able to play where it's all like where I can't lose. And when you play to win, you can't lose. But it can't be faked. So you got to fill up your heart with wisdom. How can we do that? The beginning of all wisdom is spending time with God. And when we spend time with him, then we'll see his words, his actions. We'll see that they're in line. We'll start to respect him, which is the fear of God. And then that will trigger everything else. In verse 27 through 28, as we finish up, is playing to win and playing not to lose both produce results. And now the choice is yours. You could play to protect the lead. You can get the lead, and then you can start to try to protect it, or you could just go out and you can play to win. Winning with God is different than winning with man. Winning with man most of the time is about the battle. But playing to win with God is about the victory. The battle is just temporary. Hey, I need to win this particular thing. And what God is saying, no, do you want to win the battle, or you want to win the war? You want the victory of the war, the whole thing. Because there's going to be a bunch of little battles, and sometimes they're not going to turn out your way, but ultimately you win when you spend time with him. As we finish up today, you have a choice today. Are you going to celebrate your nerves that you're experiencing that prove that you deeply care? Or are you going to allow them to apply pressure that debilitates you to wonder what will happen if you screw up? I encourage you. I'm not even going to just encourage you. I'm going to plead with you, which I don't do very often. But I'm going to plead with you to play to win every single day in every single situation. And you can thank me later for that. I want to thank my wife, because my wife, even though she's the best at what she does, she still had anxiety today. But that anxiety, baby, what I want to tell you, Brooklyn, is that's because you care. And the reason why you're the best is because you care. So celebrate that every single day. Don't allow that light to go dim. Don't allow that to go dim, because what will happen is when that light goes a little bit dim, is just that we start to question, what if I screw this up? That's not the mentality that you need to walk in with, because that's not what got you to be the best. My pops would say it like this: you're the greatest, so act accordingly. And imagine if we acted accordingly to the greatness that we have, that we actually believe, but you got to first believe it in your heart. And where you believe it in your heart is you fill it up with wisdom. And the way that we fill it up with wisdom is you spend time with the one who created you, and he will build you greater than anything. And he will always have you playing to win. That is my time today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Inchstones. I appreciate you all. Share it with a friend who needs to hear it today. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again.